Power is a strange thing. It doesn't change people, it reveals them. If you had asked me a year ago what love looked like, I would have said Ethan Carter. He was everything to me, sharp-suited, smooth-talking, full of promises. We were married 10 years. We built a life in Chicago, raised our son, Jackson, attended black-tie galas, played perfect, and I played my part well. Smiling wife, graceful hostess, silent partner. But the silence was killing me. His family, the Carters, owned half of downtown, skyscrapers, foundations, and enough old money to buy reputations. And today, his mother, Madeline Carter, the real Iron Queen, was stepping down. Ethan was taking over. He walked into the kitchen that morning like a man who already owned the world. "My love," he said, brushing his lips against my cheek. "It's official. Mom's announcing me as chairman at noon." I looked up from Jackson's cereal bowl. "That's huge." He laughed. "Booked a place for dinner tonight. Just us. Let's celebrate properly." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to see the man I once married. The one who held my hand during my miscarriage. Who rubbed my back when I couldn't stop crying. But lately, he'd been distant. Distracted. His eyes, once gentle, had turned hollow. Still, I nodded. "Of course," I said. "I'll be there." That evening, I put on the navy dress he used to love. I curled my hair, wore the diamond necklace he gave me on our 3rd anniversary. The restaurant location he texted felt odd. Pier 34 Yacht Club. An old venue on the edge of Lake Michigan, abandoned for years. Quiet. Forgotten. I drove there anyway. The air was cold. The lake slapped against the docks like it wanted to warn me. I stepped onto the wood, heels clicking. The sky was dark, wind slicing through my coat. Then I heard it. Laughter, familiar. I followed it around the boathouse, heart pounding, mouth dry. And there he was, Ethan, and her, Sophia Blackwell, my so-called friend. The woman who once sat across from me at charity dinners, who texted me about spa days, who held my baby while I cleaned spilled wine from the couch. Now she was wrapped around my husband like a goddamn silk ribbon. I froze. Ethan turned, saw me, and didn't even flinch. "Oh, you're early," he said casually, like I wasn't watching my world collapse. "Ethan," I whispered. Sophia smirked. "You were supposed to be at the south entrance," she said. "Guess we miscalculated." I stepped closer, tears already burning behind my eyes. What the hell is this? Ethan rolled his sleeves, calm as ice. "It's closure, Lena. For you." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" He looked out over the lake. 10 years is a long time, Lena. But it was always temporary. You were safe, acceptable, but never permanent. "I carried your child," I snapped. He looked back at me then, sharp and cold. "Tried to," he said. "You failed, remember?" I gasped. "That miscarriage, it wasn't my fault. You know that." He nodded slowly. "I do, but it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what's next. My mother doesn't want weakness in the Carter name. And you, with your little infertility issue." My whole body went still. "You knew?" I said, voice trembling. He stepped closer, and for the first time ever, I saw the real Ethan. Not the husband, not the father. The cold, calculating air. "I paid Dr. Benson," he whispered. "Years ago, after your first pregnancy. Told him to ensure it couldn't happen again." I felt the world tilt. My knees nearly buckled. "You what?" Sophia leaned in. "We couldn't risk you trying again. You were a liability, Lena." I stared at them. My body, my womb, my child. It had all been part of their plan. "You monsters," I said, shaking. Ethan gave a crooked grin. "Come on, don't be dramatic. We're giving you freedom. A clean break." He tossed something at my feet. A folder. Inside, divorce papers, custody claim, prenup reminders, a check. Take it, he said. Be smart. I picked it up. Then I looked at Sophia. She didn't even pretend to be sorry. I'll raise Jackson right, she said. Teach him real legacy. I looked at Ethan. You think money makes you untouchable, I whispered. He just smiled. I know it does. They turned and walked away, arms intertwined. I stood on the dock for what felt like hours, wind cutting through me, waves echoing my heartbeat. Then, I did what they never expected. I didn't cry. I smiled, because I realized something powerful. They hadn't ended me. They'd awakened me, and I was going to destroy them, not with fists, not with screams, but with patience, with strategy, and with the truth. Because here's the thing about betrayal. It turns love into fuel. It turns silence into fire. And a woman with nothing to lose, she's the most dangerous of all. There's something eerie about silence after a storm. When I walked back to my car that night, I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I just sat there. The lights of downtown Chicago flickered in the distance, mocking me. Here I was, the wife of a soon-to-be billionaire CEO, the woman with the diamond ring, the mansion, the parties, and none of it meant a damn thing. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but not from fear, from rage. 3 days passed. Ethan hadn't contacted me, not even to ask if I signed the papers. He assumed I would crawl into a hole, that I'd cry in my mother's basement, that I'd take the check, disappear, and never threaten his golden throne. But I didn't sign anything. Instead, I called the one person I trusted, Harper Monroe, my college roommate, now a corporate attorney, the type of woman who could rip a man's life apart with a single lawsuit while sipping her oat milk latte. She arrived at my apartment in under an hour. "Jesus, Lena," she said, hugging me tight. "What happened to your face?" I hadn't even realized I still had tear-streaked makeup. "I know it sounds insane," I said, pacing, "but he confessed. He made me infertile, on purpose, paid off the doctor, and now he's trying to take Jackson from me." She blinked. "Wait, what?" I handed her the folder. She flipped through the papers. Divorce, prenup, custody, NDA, $1 million check. "Typical Carter move," she muttered. "Bury the body with a payout." She looked up at me. Her eyes hardened. "I'm not just fighting this," I said. "I'm going to burn their entire dynasty to the ground." Harper smiled. "Then let's light the first match." Day 4. I moved Jackson out of our main house quietly. He didn't ask much, just clung to me a little tighter than usual. We stayed at a small rental near the lake. Just enough distance to breathe. Just enough space for me to think. Jackson was the only good thing Ethan ever gave me. And I wasn't going to let him grow up thinking this was normal, that women were disposable, and power made you God. I tucked him in one night, and he looked up with those soft blue eyes, so much like mine. "Mom," he whispered. "Yeah, baby." "Why did Daddy stop hugging you?" I swallowed hard. "Because some people don't know how to love properly," I whispered. He nodded, like that answer made perfect sense. But it shouldn't have. Day 6, Harper called. "I found something," she said. "You're going to want to sit down." I didn't. "Tell me." She took a breath. "Ethan's mistress, Sophia Blackwell. She's not just some fling. She's listed as vice director of operations in one of the Carter shell companies, a company tied to offshore money laundering." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "She's on payroll. Big time. And guess who signed her contract? Madeline Carter. The queen herself, my sweet manipulative mother-in-law. I thought Sophia was just a threat to my marriage," I said softly. "But she's a threat to my son's inheritance." Harper laughed darkly. "Oh, honey, these people don't just cheat on wives. They cheat the law." Day 7. I returned to the mansion. I had every legal right to. My name was still on the title. Harper made sure of that. Madeline was waiting in the foyer when I arrived. She wore emerald. She always wore emerald, when she wanted to remind people she was royalty. "Lena," she said flatly, "you should have called." I set my purse down slowly. "I thought I'd stop by. My son still lives here." She sipped her tea. "You've made a mess." "Have I?" I smiled sweetly. "Or did I just survive yours?" She didn't flinch. "I know everything," I whispered. "About the doctor. About the bribes. About Sophia's fake titles. And Ethan." I stepped closer. "He's a puppet, and you're the hand." Madeline placed her cup down. "You're playing a dangerous game, dear." "So are you." She stood, walked toward me with that slow, calculated elegance only women like her could master. "I should have known you were a problem the day Ethan brought you home," she said. "You were too quiet, too smart, too aware." I didn't move. "You made a mistake," I said. "You left me alive." Day 9. Harper's contact at the Tribune confirmed the first article would drop by Monday. Headline: "The Heiress and the Mistress. Dark Money in the Carter Dynasty." We weren't just exposing the affair, we were exposing the rot. Sophia's offshore account, Ethan's misappropriation of charity funds, Madeline's shell corporation in Delaware, all backed with evidence. And Lena Carter? I'd be the whistleblower, the wife turned informant. It wouldn't be enough to bankrupt them. Not yet. But it would shake the kingdom. And that was enough. For now. Day 11. The Gala. Every year, the Carters hosted a winter charity event. Ethan and Sophia were expected to publicly debut their relationship there. Except they weren't expecting me. I walked in wearing red. Not soft red, not wine red, blood red. Harper walked beside me, dressed in sleek black, holding documents like daggers. Every head turned as we entered the ballroom. Ethan froze mid-toast. Sophia's smile twitched. Madeline's eyes narrowed. "Good evening," I said into the mic. I wasn't on the guest list, but then again, neither was betrayal. Gasps. Murmurs. Harper stepped forward, holding up a printed copy of the Tribune's article. "Oh, and tomorrow's headline," I said with a smile. "You're all in it." But the best part was the envelope in my purse, a paternity test, signed and stamped, confirming what I had always known. Jackson Carter was Ethan's son, biologically, legally, indisputably, and I wasn't infertile. The abortion had been real, the scarring hadn't. The doctor had lied, for a price. I'd found the truth, and I was about to use it. You never forget the moment you stop being afraid. For me, it was standing under the crystal chandelier of the Carter Winter Gala, dressed in blood red, staring into the eyes of the woman who tried to erase me. Madeline Carter, the woman who once kissed my forehead and whispered, "Your family now." Ethan, the man who once held my shaking hands as I sobbed over a miscarriage, knowing full well it was his doing. And Sophia Blackwell, the woman who used to ask me for skincare tips and now proudly wore the man I married like a custom Gucci coat. I looked at them, not with sorrow, but with hunger, because the tables had turned, and they didn't even know it yet. The air in the ballroom was tight. Whispers fluttered like moths. Sophia blinked. Ethan stiffened. Madeline sipped her wine as if I were just a passing shadow. But I had no intention of passing. Harper stood beside me, her black folder tucked neatly beneath her arm. "Lena," Ethan said with his fake, polished voice, "you're not supposed to be here." I smiled. "Neither are you, if we're going by morality." A few people laughed nervously. "I'm not here to cause drama," I said into the mic, smiling like the devil in Prada. "I just thought the guests might enjoy some transparency." I pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Starting tomorrow, you'll see some light reading in the papers. Corporate fraud, offshore laundering, nepotism, all starring Chicago's golden family." Ethan lunged forward. "Lena, put that away." "I already did," I whispered. in the hands of 6 different journalists and 2 federal agencies. His face paled. Sophia looked ready to vomit. "Madeline?" She smiled. "You're bluffing, dear," she said. "No," I said, stepping closer. "You're burning." I left the stage to the sound of stunned silence. Guests whispered. Paparazzi moved in. The Carters stood frozen, like statues made of secrets. Outside, snow was falling in soft sheets. Harper and I slid into the back seat of her black sedan. "You did it," she said softly. "No," I said. That was just the beginning. The next morning, front page. Whistleblower exposes Carter family corruption. The story detailed everything. Sophia's fake executive title, Ethan's embezzlement trail, Madeline's offshore web of tax havens, photos, documents, testimonies. But buried inside was the most important detail. The anonymous source? Me. Ethan called. I didn't answer. He texted, "You've made a mistake, Lena. Come home before it gets worse. I'll take everything, Jackson included." I replied with one photo. A paternity test, his signature, Jackson's DNA, clear as sunlight. Then I typed, "Game on, Ethan." That afternoon, I received an invitation from Madeline Carter herself. The address, the Carter estate. Not the house Ethan and I lived in. The real house. The old one. The one only family saw. The one with locked wings and oil paintings that watched you move. I showed Harper the card. "You going?" I nodded. I want to see her eyes when she realizes I'm not her prey. I'm her executioner. 7:00 p.m. sharp. The gates opened with a groan. The butler, Thomas, led me down the long marble hallway. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He knew. They all knew. Madeline was waiting in the drawing room, seated by a roaring fireplace, wearing her signature emerald brooch. "You look lovely," she said. "You look nervous," I replied. She poured 2 glasses of bourbon. No ice. Always neat. "Why?" she asked calmly. "Why go to war?" "Because you killed my child," I said. She tilted her head. "You still believe that?" I pulled out the second document, the affidavit from Dr. Benson, admitting he'd been paid to lie, to scar my file, to make Ethan's betrayal irreversible. Madeline didn't flinch. "I did what I had to," she said. "You were unfit. You were soft." "No," I said. "I was human. And that scared you." She sipped the bourbon. "You're angry." "No," I replied. "I'm focused." Madeline leaned back, sighing. "Let me guess. You want a piece of the foundation?" I laughed. "No, Madeline. I want all of it." She chuckled. "You, with your charity degrees and social work background, what could you possibly do with it?" "I'll clean it," I said. "Expose every dollar you laundered. Rebuild it with integrity." "And Ethan?" she asked. "You'd destroy your son's father?" I smiled. "He destroyed himself." She stared at me. The silence hung like a noose between us. "Let's make a deal," she said finally. "No," I said, rising. She blinked. "What? This isn't poker, Madeline. It's chess, and you're one move from checkmate." As I turned to leave, she said one final thing. "You'll regret this, Lena." I stopped at the doorway. "No," I said. "You will." Later that night, I stood on the balcony of my lake rental, holding Jackson's tiny sock in my hand, feeling the weight of a mother's promise. I would not stop until every lie Ethan Carter ever told was dragged into the sun. Because this wasn't about a failed marriage anymore. This was about justice. And now, I had the documents, the witnesses, the press. But I also had something they never did. A heart they couldn't buy. I tucked Jackson into bed. He mumbled, half asleep. "Mommy, are you sad again?" I kissed his forehead. "No, baby," I whispered. "Mommy's just planning something big." There's a strange calm that comes over you when you've got nothing left to lose. You stop worrying about what people might think. You stop tiptoeing around fragile egos. You stop forgiving the trail just because it came in a tailored suit. By day 15, the cracks in the Carter empire weren't just visible. They were shattering. Ethan had gone into damage control. He pulled ads, froze accounts, bribed reporters. And most importantly, he tried to paint me as a disgruntled wife with mental health issues. Classic. Except I wasn't just angry. I was strategic. And I wasn't unstable. I was undeniable. I still had the paternity test. I still had Dr. Benson's affidavit. And thanks to Harper, I had an insider. His name was Riley Kane, former Carter Foundation employee, fired for budget violations. In reality, she discovered Madeline was siphoning funds through fake orphanage programs in Haiti. When Harper reached her, she was working at a diner in Milwaukee, barely getting by. I met her the next day. She wore cheap lipstick and a bulletproof attitude. "You're that Lena?" she asked, sipping her black coffee. "Didn't think you had the spine." I smiled. "I do now." She stared at me. "You want to take down Madeline Carter? You'll need more than receipts." "I've got those," I said. "What I need is blood." We spent 3 hours going through old ledgers, hidden wire transfers, donor identities, ghost charities. At the center of it all, Ethan. He had signed off on every transaction, and Sophia, she was listed as CFO of a Chicago-based wellness nonprofit. It didn't even exist. Riley looked up from the file and whispered, "They're going to bury you." I smiled. "Not before I bury them first." That night I returned to our old house, the one Ethan now shared with Sophia. I still had the key, and legally it was half mine. I didn't go to start a fight. I went to collect what was mine. Photographs, bank statements, USB drives, and something more important than all of it, Jackson's birth certificate. He needed proof of who he was. Not just the boy left behind, but the boy they tried to erase. I was in the study, rummaging through the desk drawer, when I heard a sound. Footsteps. I froze. Then a familiar voice. "You really are insane." Ethan stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, tie undone. Behind him, Sophia. Her heels clicked like gunshots on the marble. "What the hell are you doing in our house?" she hissed. "Our house?" I laughed. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Ethan stepped forward. "Lena, listen. You don't have to go down like this. We can still fix it." "Fix it?" I barked. "You drugged me, stole my medical records, gaslit me for years." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop playing victim. You weren't strong enough to be a Carter. That's your real issue." I turned slowly, walked toward her, face to face. "No, Sophia," I said softly. "My issue was trusting snakes. That ends tonight." I tossed a USB drive on the desk. "Everything's backed up," I said. "If anything happens to me, the files go public. Every offshore account, every fake nonprofit, every child you never helped." Ethan stared at the drive like it was ticking. Sophia looked like she might throw up. And I walked out. Just before I reached the door, I turned and said, "Oh, and congratulations on the pregnancy." Sophia flinched. Ethan blinked. "You're not the only one with secrets," I added. And then I left. The next morning, I sat on my balcony, sipping coffee while Jackson played with Legos on the rug. Harper called. "They're panicking," she said. "Sophia tried to liquidate one of the dummy charities. The bank froze it. The feds are circling." And Ethan lawyered up. "Good. Let them run. Let them sweat. Let them try to escape the fire they set themselves." Later that afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. "Meet me, private, 9 p.m., Carter's Cemetery Gate." It was Madeline. Of course it was. The old queen never liked to bleed in public. 9:00 p.m. The cemetery was cold, windy, almost poetic. Madeline stood in a fur coat near her husband's grave. "You've done damage," she said without turning. "Not enough," I replied. She turned to face me. Her makeup was perfect, her lips red, her brooch gleaming, but her eyes, terrified. "You have Jackson," she said. "He's my son. He's a Carter." "No," I corrected. "He's better." She stepped closer. "What do you want?" "Everything," I said. "Every title, every foundation, every donation, every lie." She laughed once, hollow. "You'll be dead within the year." "Maybe," I whispered. "But I'll go out with your empire in flames." She stared at me for a long time, and then she said the one thing I didn't expect. "You remind me of myself." I smiled. "That's your worst nightmare." Back at the house, I found a note on my door, typed, unmarked. "This isn't over. Check your bedroom window." I ran upstairs. There was a bullet hole in the glass, and a single white rose on the windowsill. Sophia's signature. She wanted war? Then she was going to get it. Because I wasn't just a woman scorned anymore. I was the woman they should have feared. People think revenge is loud, explosive, immediate. But the best kind of revenge? It's slow. It creeps in quietly, like frost crawling up a window. And when they finally realize what you've done, it's already too late. After the bullet, after the white rose, after the threat. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I didn't call the police. Why? Because calling the police would have meant handing the narrative over. And this story belonged to me. Instead, I called Harper. I spoke one sentence. Dig into the Carter bloodline. Every child, every secret. Start with Ethan's father. She paused. "You think there's more?" "I don't think. I know." The next morning, Harper texted, "You're going to want to see this in person." We met at a private office in the Loop, a glassy high-rise that overlooked the city like a hawk. She laid a file on the table. No words, just numbers, signatures, and one photo. "Who is this?" I asked. "Zane Walker, age 28, works construction in Southside. But look closer." I did. Same jawline as Ethan, same gray-green eyes. Harper handed me a second file, a sealed court document, from 1997. Jonathan Carter's illegitimate son. Zane was born during a 2-year affair, hidden, never claimed publicly. My pulse thumped. They buried him. Harper nodded. But the Carter Foundation paid monthly support for 18 years. "They were keeping him quiet," I said. "No," she replied. "They were keeping him ready, just in case the legitimate heirs failed." I sat back, staring at the photo of the man who shared Ethan's face, and then I smiled. "Harper, what if I bring him home?" That night, I found Zane. He was working late on a hospital renovation downtown, wearing a flannel shirt, sawdust in his beard, and calluses on his fingers. A man built by sweat, not suits. He didn't know me. But the moment I said Carter, his eyes hardened. "What do you want?" "I want to tell you the truth," I said. "And maybe give you the power they stole from you." We sat on a concrete ledge, wind blowing, the hum of city sirens in the distance. I handed him the file. He didn't speak for a long time. When he did, his voice cracked. "She told me my dad died in a fire. That's why he never came." "I'm sorry," I whispered. He stared at the skyline. "I don't want their money. I don't want their name. But you deserve to know who you are," I said. He looked at me. "Why now?" I hesitated. "Because I'm burning the Carter family to the ground. And if you want in, I have a front row seat for you." 3 days later, Zane agreed to meet Madeline, in private, at the Carter estate. I watched from Harper's SUV, parked just across the street. Madeline opened the door herself. She stared at Zane like a ghost had come to collect. She invited him in. 1 hour passed, then 2. When he returned, he was pale, quiet, angry. "What did she say?" I asked. He lit a cigarette with trembling hands. "She offered me a trust fund," he said, "if I agreed to move out of state, change my name, stay silent." "And?" I asked. I told her I'd think about it. You're not taking the deal? He shook his head. I'm not for sale. The next morning, a second bullet shattered Zane's apartment window. No note this time, just a bag of ashes on the floor, labeled, "What's left of traitors." He called me at 4 a.m., whispering like someone was listening. You were right, he said. They don't negotiate. They eliminate. And you? I asked. There was silence. Then his voice, low and dangerous. I'm in. With Zane on my side, the war became personal. He wasn't just leverage. He was a Carter by blood, and the perfect weapon. We filed for a DNA test through the courts, legally binding, admissible. If the results came back positive, and they would, Zane would have equal claim to the Carter estate as Ethan. Which meant Madeline couldn't silence both of us, especially not when we stood united. But Ethan didn't know about Zane yet, so I played one last game. I invited Ethan to meet me. Alone. No lawyers. No Harper. Just us. At the lakeside dock where he once told me he loved me. He showed up in all black. Sunglasses. Arrogance. Why are we here? He asked. To say goodbye, I replied. To what? To your legacy. I handed him the court documents. Paternity test request. Filed. Stamped. Who is this? He asked, skimming it. Your brother, I whispered. Zane, his jaw locked. You're bluffing. Am I? His face changed. You found him. And I'm giving him everything, Ethan. The name, the truth, the throne. He stepped closer. You think I'll let that happen? You don't have a choice. He grabbed my wrist. You're playing a dangerous game, Lena. I leaned in close. Wrong. I'm rewriting it. I walked away, wind at my back, Ethan's fury hot on my neck. But I didn't turn around, because I knew this war wasn't about who loved more, or who lied first. It was about who survived. And for the first time since this all began, I wasn't alone. If part 1 was about betrayal, and part 2 was about survival, then this was war. Not a loud one, not with guns or knives, but a war of paper, whispers, bank wires, and ruined reputations. And Madeline Carter? She finally showed me what a wounded queen looks like. After Zane's DNA filing hit the court system, the media went into a frenzy. Secret heir to Carter dynasty emerges. Carter empire faces inheritance showdown. Illegitimate son, Zane Walker, stakes legal claim. The tabloids were eating it up. Business analysts were rattled. Stockholders were panicking. And Ethan? Ethan was unraveling. He fired 2 PR firms, paid a crisis manager $80,000 in a week, even tried to hold a press conference, but it backfired when a reporter asked, Mr. Carter, is it true your mother once paid a doctor to render your wife infertile? He stormed off stage. The headlines were brutal. I watched from my sofa, sipping wine. Jackson played Legos on the floor beside me, blissfully unaware that his mother had become the quiet hurricane of the Carter family legacy. That night, I got the call. Madeline's assistant, Lyle. Mrs. Carter, he said, still pretending I carried that name like an honor. She's requested your presence, immediately. I'm busy. She says it's about Jackson. I went. The Carver mansion looked different now. The gates didn't open with grace. They groaned. The lights didn't glow. They flickered. The foundation was cracking, and Madeline knew it. She was waiting in the grand solarium, curtains drawn, crystal glass in hand. Her fingers trembled slightly. That never happened before. You've brought shame, she said, without even looking up. I stayed standing. You brought this on yourself. She took a sip. Do you know what it's like to build an empire? To keep it spotless for 4 decades, and then lose it all because of one? She paused, looked me in the eye. Housewife. I smiled. Correction. Ex-housewife. Now full-time destroyer. She stood. You've made a mockery of the Carter name. You've turned our bloodline into a soap opera. And yet, I said, stepping forward, You were fine with burying a living heir in a construction job. Fine with me raising your grandson like a ghost. Madeline's eyes sharpened. Zane will not inherit this legacy. I cocked my head. Why not? He's blood. She walked past me, heels echoing like a ticking clock. Because he's not Carter enough. He's not polished. He's not curated. He's not obedient. I stepped in front of her. And Ethan is? She stared at me. I won't let you ruin my son. You already did. I turned to leave, but then she dropped the bomb. You should ask Harper about the missing file. I froze. What file? She sipped her drink. The paternity test wasn't the only document you filed. There was another. Disappeared from the court system last week. I turned slowly. She smiled. Quiet, deadly. I'm not the only one who knows how to buy silence. I left without another word, my heart pounding. Not from fear, from fury. Because if Madeline was right, if Harper... No, she wouldn't. She couldn't. Would she? I met Harper that night. Her office, late, rain smudging the city outside. She was calm, but her eyes were tired. I dropped the glass folder on her desk. Tell me the truth. She blinked. About? The second file. The inheritance freeze motion. You said it was pending. Madeline says it never went through. She hesitated. Lena, my throat tightened. Tell me. She sighed, stood, paced. I got an offer, okay? Not from Madeline. Not from Ethan either. From who? A trustee. A lawyer representing the board. They offered me a seat. A chance to help restructure the foundation. I felt sick. You took it? Her eyes shimmered. I thought I could help from the inside. Protect your interests. Keep Zane safe. You lied to me. No, I didn't lie. I rerouted. I took a step back. This isn't a game, Harper. This is my son's legacy. His future. You don't get to play both sides. She whispered, I was trying to win. So was I. I left her office that night with my hands shaking. I had no allies left. Or so I thought. 3 days passed. I didn't speak to Harper. Zane was laying low, waiting for DNA results. Ethan was scrambling. Sophia was hospitalized for stress. Madeline, silent. Too silent. Which is why I was shocked when a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single photo. Me, sitting outside Jackson's school, coffee in hand, taken from a distance. Underneath, a note written in thick black ink. End this, or next time it won't be a picture. I packed Jackson that same night. We went to a safe house Harper once arranged months ago. It was quiet, hidden, anonymous. But my rage was loud. They thought threatening my son would scare me. It didn't. It awakened something darker. They could steal money, ruin reputations, even twist the truth. But touch my child, and I become something else entirely. Zane showed up the next morning. He handed me a sealed envelope. I pulled this from my father's lawyer's archive. I opened it. It was a will, signed, notarized, stating that all legitimate and illegitimate children of Jonathan Carter were entitled to an equal share of Carter Foundation assets. And it was dated 3 months before his death. Zane looked at me. I don't want their money, Lena, but I won't let them erase me anymore. I nodded. Then let's give them a history lesson they'll never forget. Because the Carter family thought this was a matter of pride. But for me, it was personal. And now, it was war with no survivors. People say blood is thicker than water, but what they forget is this: blood stains. And the Carter bloodline was about to be splattered across every boardroom wall, courtroom file, and headline in America. Because today, the truth was coming in writing. It was 9:43 a.m. Zane and I sat in a marble hallway of the Cook County Courthouse. Lawyers whispered. Assistants shuffled files. Reporters waited outside like vultures, smelling blood. I looked at Zane. He was calm, but his leg bounced, barely noticeable, beneath the table. You okay? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then? My whole life, I thought I was a mistake. Now, I'm about to find out if I'm a threat. I squeezed his hand. You're not a threat, I said. You're the consequence of someone else's secret. The courtroom doors opened. Judge Avery, tough, no nonsense, and about as sympathetic as a concrete wall. She motioned us in. At the far side of the room sat Ethan and Madeline. Their legal team looked like they'd been through a war and lost. Sophia was absent. Rumor had it she was on bed rest, more like hiding from cameras. Harper sat beside me. We hadn't spoken since our last fallout. But this wasn't about friendship anymore. It was about facts. And the fact was, we had one. Judge Avery cleared her throat. Today, we review the DNA results regarding Mr. Zane Walker and the late Jonathan Carter, as well as any potential impacts to trust allocations within the Carter Foundation. You could hear a pin drop. The clerk handed the envelope to the judge. She opened it slowly, deliberately. She read it. Once, then again. Her face didn't change. She cleared her throat again. This court confirms that Mr. Zane Walker is the biological son of Jonathan Carter. Paternity is established with 99.9998% certainty. The room didn't erupt. It imploded. Ethan's face drained of color. Madeline's lips pursed so tightly they vanished. Their lawyer took off his glasses like he needed a minute to adjust to a new reality. Zane? He didn't flinch. I felt my chest rise, and for the first time in weeks, I breathed. Judge Avery continued. Under the late Mr. Carter's signed and notarized will, all children, legitimate or otherwise, are entitled to an equal portion of the Carter Foundation inheritance. Madeline stood. I object. That will is outdated. A revised one is pending discovery. The judge raised a brow. And yet, you haven't filed it. Silence. Until then, she continued, this court recognizes Mr. Walker as a rightful heir. The foundation is hereby frozen from internal asset movement until equitable restructuring is finalized. Bang. Gavel down. Case adjourned. Outside, the media swarmed. Zane, how do you feel about being a Carter? Lena, was this your revenge plan all along? Is it true Madeline threatened your son? What will happen to Ethan now? I pushed through the crowd, grabbed Zane's arm, and pulled him into the car. Harper slid in behind us. You did it, she whispered. No, I said. We just leveled the field. Now we fight. Hours later, the Carter boardroom called an emergency meeting. 23 members. Most of them had known me as Ethan's wife or Madeline's little project. But today, they were meeting Lena Carter, the storm in stilettos. I entered wearing black, hair tied back. No makeup, just red lips. Behind me, Zane, calm, grounded. Ethan sat at the head of the table, but for the first time, he looked small. Madeline wasn't there. Rumor said she was indisposed. Translation, unraveling behind closed doors. The room murmured until Ethan stood. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, we appreciate your attendance. Today we face structural adjustments, but nothing that jeopardizes the integrity of the Carter Foundation. Bullshit, someone muttered. I smiled. Ethan cleared his throat. With the appearance of Zane Walker, Carter, I corrected. Zane Carter. Ethan's jaw ticked. We understand a realignment of ownership is due, but we assure you that myself and my mother have the Foundation's best interest. Zane stood. Your mother isn't even listed on the Foundation board anymore. Ethan blinked. She resigned 2 days ago, Zane added. Filed through a proxy. Probably thought she'd sneak out before it all hit the fan. Gasps. Whispers. Stirring. I stepped forward. I have a proposal, I said. One that benefits everyone. No lawsuits. No PR scandals. The room hushed. Step down, Ethan. You walk away with your shares. Sophia keeps her plastic surgery fund. Madeline gets her silence. Zane and I take over operations and restructure the foundation legally. Ethan laughed. Why the hell would I agree to that? I smiled. Because if you don't, I'll release the offshore files. All of them. The child charity scans, the private jet receipts tied to donor funds, the affair ledger, the medical bribes, every dirty secret. Harper dropped a flash drive onto the table. Press embargo ends in 72 hours, unless told otherwise, she said calmly. Ethan looked around the room. No one spoke. No one backed him. And just like that, he knew. He sank into the chair slowly. You think you've won, he whispered. I leaned forward. No, Ethan, I know I did. As we walked out of the building, Zane turned to me. What now? I smiled. Now we build something honest. But first, he asked. I slid on my sunglasses. We let the queen fall. There's a silence that comes before something breaks, not the peaceful kind. The kind that holds its breath before a bomb goes off. That's how it felt the morning after Ethan surrendered the board seat. The world quieted, but I knew Madeline wasn't finished. Not her. She didn't crawl to the top of Chicago's elite by surrendering. And she damn sure wouldn't watch her empire burn without lighting a few fires of her own. That morning, I got a letter. No envelope, just cream-colored cardstock embossed in gold ink. No signature, no greeting, just one line. You think this ends with him. It began with me. Attached was an address, downtown, a luxury apartment, one of Madeline's unofficial properties. I knew it was a trap, but I went anyway. Not because I trusted her, but because I needed to look the devil in the eyes when I finally cut off her crown. The penthouse smelled like orchids and control. She was seated at the piano, playing Chopin like it was just another Thursday. Come in, dear, she said, without looking up. I did. You've got nerve, I said, arms crossed. She finished the piece, closed the lid gently, and finally turned. Her emerald brooch sparkled. Always emerald. Always deliberate. You've done well, she said with that cold smile. Too well. Don't flatter me, I replied. I'm not, she said. I'm warning you. She stood and walked to the bar, pouring herself bourbon. Want one? No. She took a sip. You think Ethan was the villain, she said. He was the pawn, the distraction. I narrowed my eyes. You destroyed my womb. You erased Zane. You threatened my son. She turned sharply. I protected the Carter name. I stepped forward. By turning your family into a lie. She smirked. Families are lies. Arranged marriages, secret affairs, hidden children. Loyalty bought with inheritance. She paused. Did you know your mother-in-law, me, once loved a man so deeply she almost gave up everything? I blinked. What? Before Jonathan Carter, there was someone else, she whispered. Poor, honest, beautiful, but useless. Couldn't help me build this empire. So you left him? No, she said. I ruined him, just like I ruined you. Because women like us don't get to live soft lives. We're either the knife or the victim, and I choose the blade. She stepped close. I want you to remember this, Lena. You didn't win. You just lasted longer. I left that penthouse shaking, not from fear, from disgust. Because somewhere deep inside that woman was someone who could have been me. But I refused to rot like her. Later that night, Harper called. You need to see this, she said. She sent over a scanned birth certificate. But not Jackson's. It was Sophia's. I blinked. Why does it say, Sophia Blackwell Carter? She changed it, Harper said. 5 years ago, quietly, privately. Ethan signed as a legal co-parent. The adoption paperwork followed 6 months later. I felt the floor tilt. She adopted a child? Not exactly. She created one. I scrolled to the attached photo. A boy. 7. Same hair as Jackson. Same eyes. My heart dropped. Is that? Harper paused. That's your son's twin. I dropped the phone. No, 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 no. I lost one of the twins during the pregnancy. The doctor told me he didn't survive the birth. But the hospital never gave me full records. I was sedated, foggy, drugged. Could it be? Had Sophia, had Natalie taken one of my children? I met Harper at the county records office the next day. We pulled sealed files, one after the other. Hospital logs, transfer slips. Then, there it was. Baby boy Carter, born 4:31 a.m., second baby, unviable, transferred to private medical wing. Discharged under alias, S. Blackwell. My knees buckled. They stole my child. They let me believe he died. They watched me cry in that hospital bed, alone, while they walked away with my son. Back at the safe house, I stared at Jackson. He was on the floor, coloring. Oblivious, innocent. He had a brother, a twin, out there, being raised by the woman who helped destroy me. My voice cracked when I called Zane. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "Tell me what you need." And I told him everything. The next day, I filed a lawsuit for custodial fraud, medical conspiracy, and kidnapping. Harper got the papers drawn in under 12 hours. We served them at Sophia's private residence through her front gate. The security camera caught the exact moment she opened the door. She screamed, and then she fainted. Ethan called 2 hours later. "You're out of your mind," he hissed. "No," I said. "I'm a mother. You're tearing us apart. I'm just uncovering what was already broken. You don't even know if that kid is yours." "Oh, but I will." Because the next step was a DNA test. Not for Zane, not for Ethan, for the boy they said never existed. I once believed the worst pain I could feel was betrayal, but I was wrong. There's something worse. It's the pain of discovering that your child, your flesh and blood, was stolen, and you never even got the chance to fight for him. After the lawsuit hit the press, chaos exploded. Sophia's name trended within minutes. #kidnapper Sophia, #stolen twin. Public opinion turned fast and vicious. She issued a statement through her PR firm, claiming the child in question was an adoption through private medical channels. No foul play, no deception. A lie. A rehearsed white lace $1 million lie. But we weren't playing PR games anymore. We had evidence. Harper called just past 2 a.m. "We got the DNA swab." She sounded winded, nervous. "I used one of his toothbrushes. It's at the lab." I whispered into the dark, "What's his name?" "Zion." My throat locked. Zion. A name I never got to choose. A life I never got to hold. For 3 days I didn't sleep. I sat at Jackson's bedside at the safe house, just listening to him breathe, trying to imagine what Zion's laugh sounded like, what his favorite color was, if he liked peanut butter or hated it like his brother. Zane came by on the second night. He sat in the hallway, quiet. He didn't try to cheer me up. He just said, "If he's yours, I'll help bring him home. If he's not, I'll help you heal." The lab called on day 4. Harper answered. Then she handed me the phone. A man's voice said, "We have the results." I held my breath. Zion Blackwell is a 99.998% genetic match to Jackson Carter. The probability of full sibling, specifically a twin, is nearly absolute. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just said 2 words. "Let's bring him back." I filed for emergency custody. My lawyers fast-tracked the case through family court, citing DNA proof, forged death records, hospital tampering, fraudulent adoption paperwork under Sophia's alias. The judge scheduled a hearing within 48 hours. But before we got there, Sophia made a move. The morning before the hearing, Jackson's school called the safe house line. "Mrs. Carter, someone tried to pick up your son." My blood ran cold. "Who?" They paused. The woman said she was his legal guardian, had paperwork. She claimed to be the child's stepmother. Sophia. I raced to the school. He was safe, thanks to the headmistress, who recognized the situation from the news. But that line had been crossed. Sophia wasn't hiding anymore. She was getting desperate. I confronted Ethan, met him outside his gym. No cameras, no reporters. You think this is a negotiation? I asked. He looked exhausted. Lena, I didn't know. You let them drug me. I thought they were giving you antidepressants. You watched me grieve a baby that wasn't dead. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. I was weak, he finally said, but I didn't know what she was doing. I swear to God. I stared at him, and for the first time, I saw it. Not guilt, not rage. Fear. Madeline isn't protecting you anymore, I said. And Sophia's drowning. You have one choice left. His eyes flicked up. And that is, tell the truth, or lose both your sons. The next morning, in a courtroom packed with media, I took the stand. I showed Zion's birth file, the DNA match, the forged death report from the hospital, the proof of Sophia's alias. Then the judge turned to Ethan. He stood, cleared his throat, and dropped the bombshell. Zion is my son, and I was told he died at birth. I never questioned it. I believed what I was told. He looked at Sophia, seated behind him. And I believe now that I was wrong. Sophia stood suddenly. You bastard. She screamed. You're just going to throw me under the bus? The bailiff stepped forward, but Sophia turned to the judge. You don't understand. I raised him. He's mine. Lena didn't even want 2 babies. She said she wasn't ready. I stood. That's a lie, and you know it. Sophia lunged, but was stopped. The judge slammed the gavel. Enough. Court will reconvene in 30 minutes with final decision. Outside, I stood near the courthouse steps. The sun was blinding. Ethan approached slowly. He doesn't know you, he said. You're a stranger to him. I nodded. I know. You really think you're ready to raise 2 boys now? I looked at him. No, Ethan, I don't think I am. He tilted his head. I smiled, soft but dangerous. I know I am. The judge ruled in my favor. Immediate custody. Sophia's parental rights were temporarily suspended pending a full investigation. I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate. I just walked to the back room, where a social worker stood beside a little boy holding a blue backpack. He looked up. Same curls, same eyes. His lip trembled. Are you the lady from TV? I nodded. Yes, but more importantly, I'm your mom. He didn't rush into my arms. He didn't cry. He just stared, like his world had split in 2. But when Jackson peeked into the room, and Zion saw his brother, they both froze. Then Jackson smiled and said, You look like me. And Zion whispered, I know. I sat down beside them on the floor. 2 boys, 1 history shattered, 1 future reclaimed. And me? The woman who would burn kingdoms to protect them both. Some people crack when you take their money. Some crumble when you take their name. But the most dangerous ones are those who stay silent until you take what they love. After the judge awarded me custody of Zion, the world didn't slow down. It spun faster, wilder. I was suddenly the most talked about woman in Chicago. Carter heiress reclaims stolen twin son. Sophia Blackwell's fall from grace. Zion Carter, the boy who survived a lie. But while the world cheered, Sophia went quiet. Too quiet. 3 days passed. Then 5. No interviews. No court appearances. No lawyers. Just silence. That's when Zane got the tip. A source inside the Carter Foundation's security team sent him footage from the archives. Sophia, late at night, entering Madeline's private study, with gloves on. We met at Harper's place to go over the footage. She's not done, Harper said. She's digging. What would she even be looking for? Zane asked. I already knew. Leverage. That night, Jackson had a nightmare. He came into my room crying. Zion followed, saying nothing, just holding his brother's hand. I tucked them into my bed, watched them fall asleep under the same blanket, and I knew, if Sophia or Madeline tried anything again, this wouldn't end in court. It would end in ruins. The next day, a court official knocked on my door. "Miss Carter," he said, "you've been summoned." I took the envelope. Inside, a petition filed by Sophia Blackwell, claiming I was an unfit parent due to emotional instability and long-term psychological trauma. She was trying to reverse the custody ruling. Harper's voice cracked on the phone. "She found a therapist's report from years ago. You saw someone after the miscarriage scare, remember?" "I wasn't unstable," I said. "I was grieving. She doesn't care. She's building a case out of shadows." But that wasn't all. Zane called 30 minutes later. "Lena, she leaked something." "What?" "A file." He emailed it to me. I opened it. It was a scanned prenatal agreement, dated 7 months before Jackson and Zion were born. Signed by me, Ethan, and Madeline. It stated that in the event of mental distress or hospitalization, custody decisions could be overridden by Ethan and Madeline as joint guardians. I felt like I was going to be sick. I didn't even remember signing it. I must have been sedated. Post-surgery. That night, I stood in my bathroom, staring into the mirror. No makeup. Hair pulled back. Face worn from war. And I said it aloud. "I'm not the same woman they buried. I'm the one digging them up." The next morning, I filed a motion to void the document on grounds of medical coercion and incapacitation. But we needed more. We needed to turn the gun around. That's when Zane remembered something. Madeline keeps everything in a locked safe, inside the family vault at the estate. Harper nodded. "There's a ledger. Her own private records. If she altered medical documents or forged anything, it'll be there." "Then we need it," I said. 2 nights later, we broke in. Harper disabled the security feed. Zane picked the lock. I entered Madeline's study for the first time in years. Everything smelled like her. Roses and rage. Behind a panel in the fireplace wall was the vault. It opened with a click. Inside, stacks of sealed files. Tapes. A black leather book. Zane grabbed it. We ran. Back at Harper's loft, we opened the ledger. Page after page of secrets. Bribes to doctors, payments to politicians, donations used to silence whistleblowers. But the worst was dated October 17th, 5 days before Zion's birth. $400,000 wired to Dr. Elias Crane. Memo. Emergency transfer. I felt my stomach turn. Harper checked hospital records. Dr. Crane had listed 2 births that night, but only 1 discharge. Zion was never officially released to Sophia. The paper trail had been doctored. We had her, and we had Madeline too. The next morning, Sophia showed up at the courthouse, flanked by cameras, smiling like she hadn't just tried to erase my life. She held up a manila folder and declared, "Justice for Zion. I will not let him grow up in chaos." I waited until she was mid-speech. Then I walked up the steps behind her, flash drive in hand. "Would you like to explain the payment to Dr. Crane?" I asked loudly. She froze. Reporters turned. I handed the flash drive to the clerk, including hospital fraud, forged death reports, and a wire transfer from Madeline Carter herself, all dated and signed. Sophia's face turned white. The crowd exploded. Later that day, Sophia's lawyer dropped the custody suit. She checked herself into a rehabilitation facility out of state. Madeline, she wasn't hiding anymore. She was preparing. Because inside that same ledger was something else. A page torn from an old journal, one I recognized. It was Jonathan Carter's handwriting, and it read, "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Look to my wife." My hands went cold. Did Madeline? Did she kill her own husband? Harper met my eyes. "If that's true," Zane finished her sentence, "this war isn't just about money anymore. This was about murder." Madeline Carter never cried when her husband died. Not at the funeral, not at the estate reading, not even when the press asked her how she was coping. She just gave that perfect, cold smile and said, "Jonathan built something indestructible, and I'll honor him by protecting it." But what if she wasn't protecting his memory? What if she was protecting herself? The torn journal page we found in her ledger haunted me. "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Look to my wife." 7 words, but they changed everything. I sat in a safe house that night, staring at old newspaper clippings. Jonathan Carter died of a cardiac arrest in his home office. No foul play suspected, no autopsy. Why? Because the primary physician was a close friend of Madeline's, Dr. Crane. Yes, that Dr. Crane, the same one she paid to transfer Zion after birth. The same man whose signature was on the forged medical documents. He had retired weeks after Jonathan's death, moved to Belize, out of jurisdiction. But Harper was already on it. She called me the next morning. Dr. Crane took a job at a private clinic in Texas, cash only, off the radar. Zane offered to fly us there, but I said no. I needed to do this alone. I booked a ticket. One way. Told Jackson and Zion I was on a business trip. They were confused, but they trusted me now. Zion had finally started calling me Mom without hesitation. Jackson held his hand when they walked into school together. I was building a family again. But first, I needed to burn down the one that broke me. Texas. Heat, dust, sweat, and secrets. The clinic was buried on the edge of a dying town. Dr. Elias Crane hadn't aged well. He walked with a limp. Shaky hands, hair thinned out, but when he saw me, he froze. "Mrs. Carter." I cut him off. "Don't call me that. You don't have the right." He looked around nervously. "I can't talk here." "Then pick somewhere you can." We met in a diner at 9 p.m. I ordered black coffee. He didn't touch his drink. He just whispered, "I was paid, that's all I'll say." I placed a flash drive on the table. "I have your bank records, the wire transfers, from Madeline, from Sophia, from the Foundation's ghost accounts. You talk now, or you rot later." He exhaled. "I didn't kill him." "Then tell me who did." He closed his eyes. "Jonathan had a condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Manageable, but dangerous." I nodded. "And?" "Someone switched his medication." My blood ran cold. He opened a folder from his bag. Inside, Jonathan's original prescription logs, handwritten changes. One bottle, marked daily, was replaced with something that accelerated heart failure under stress, a stimulant. He showed me a note, a forged refill order, signed L. Crane. Someone used my login, my handwriting. "And you didn't say anything?" "They said if I talked, my daughter wouldn't live to finish high school." My hands shook as I took the file. This was it. Proof. Madeline Carter had orchestrated her husband's death. For control, for power, for silence. She'd buried a man before his body was cold. I flew back to Chicago that night. Harper was waiting at the airport. Zane, too. But when I showed them the file, Zane stepped back. His face dropped. "Lena, this will destroy everything." I narrowed my eyes. "It should." He rubbed his neck. "I didn't come into this to kill a legacy. I just wanted the truth, my name, my place. And now you have it. But if you release this, what happens to the foundation, the scholarships, the people who depend on that money?" "I'm not burning it all down," I said. "Just the rot." He didn't respond. Not right away. but I could feel something shift in him. Zane Carter, the boy who'd been forgotten, was now afraid to lose the very legacy that once erased him. That night, he didn't come to the safe house. He didn't return my texts. Harper called him twice. No answer. And when I woke up the next morning, I saw why. Headline: Carter whistleblower allegations questioned by board. Zane Carter files emergency motion to preserve foundation assets. He'd gone behind my back. My last ally, gone. I confronted him at the board offices. He didn't flinch. "I'm trying to protect what's left," he said. "You're protecting a lie. I'm protecting the people, the schools, the kids in Chicago that rely on those grants. By covering up a murder?" His voice cracked. "If we drag Madeline to court, the foundation dies. The whole thing. I've seen the numbers. The PR alone will make donors walk. There will be nothing left." I stared at him. "You sound like her." Zane looked away. "You brought me into this," I whispered. "Don't forget who you were when I found you." He closed his eyes. "I haven't forgotten, but maybe I've changed." We didn't speak for 3 days. He filed a formal statement with the court to delay any further action against Madeline. And me? I filed the autopsy motion anyway, because I wasn't here to preserve a dynasty built on secrets. I was here to end it. Meanwhile, Madeline emerged from hiding. She hosted a legacy gala for press and donors. Claimed she was stepping down to focus on her health. Wore white, smiled for the cameras. Donated $1 million to children's hospitals. But behind those emerald earrings and powdered cheeks, she knew what was coming. She felt the walls closing in. And she was making her last move. A week later, Harper showed up at my door, her face pale. "I just got a tip from someone inside the foundation," she said. I nodded. "What now?" She held out her phone. "Madeline Carter has filed for guardianship of Jackson and Zion." My heart stopped. She wasn't done. She was about to go nuclear. Madeline Carter wasn't filing for guardianship because she cared. She did it because she was cornered. Her kingdom was bleeding, and when queens bleed, they reach for the crown, or they burn the whole board. And Madeline? She was ready to light the match. The court filing hit the press within hours. Lena Carter deemed emotionally unfit by foundation co-founder. Grandmother Madeline Carter petitions for emergency custody of heirs, Jackson and Zion. She wasn't just trying to win the boys. She was trying to erase me. Again. Zane tried calling. I didn't answer. Harper showed up at my place and handed me a list of every person Madeline had paid off in the last 6 months. Judges, hospital admins, former nannies, a pediatric psychiatrist who'd never even met my kids. "She's laying groundwork for a mental breakdown narrative," Harper said. "She's going to say I'm unstable, paranoid, erratic, and that you're dragging her family legacy into the dirt," Harper added. "She'll paint herself as the noble matriarch trying to save the boys." I took the list. Then I said it. "Then let's make it public." The next morning, I walked into a TV studio wearing black jeans, a white blouse, no makeup, and my truth. I didn't hire a PR rep. I didn't rehearse. I just sat across from journalist Maya Hollis on national television and told everything. They stole my child. They altered hospital records. They gaslit me. They paid doctors to lie. They told me my baby died, while they handed him off to another woman. Maya leaned forward. "And what do you want now?" I looked directly into the camera. "I want my sons to grow up in truth, not in a dynasty built on secrets and greed. I want justice for Jonathan Carter, and I want Madeline to know, if she thinks I'm afraid of her, she hasn't met the version of me that buried her empire." The clip went viral. Hashtag Justice for Lena. Hashtag The Carter Cover-Up. Hashtag Lioness Rising. Women across the country reposted it. Survivors of medical fraud shared their stories. Single moms, whistleblowers, former employees of the foundation, all came forward. For the first time, Madeline Carter was losing the narrative, but her counterstrike came fast. Her legal team leaked a video, heavily edited, from my therapy sessions after Zion's death. I was grieving, sobbing, saying things like, I don't want to wake up anymore. I failed as a mother. Maybe they were right. Maybe I wasn't ready. The media spun it. She's unstable. She's unfit. Her breakdown proves Madeline is right. That night, I found myself outside the boys' room again. They were sleeping. Safe. But for how long? Zane came by. We hadn't spoken since the board betrayal. He stood in the hallway, shoulders heavy. I didn't know about the guardianship motion, he said. You still helped her. I tried to protect what's left. By burying the truth? I thought there was a way to save both the legacy and the people in it. I stared at him. I'm not here to save a name, Zane. I'm here to save my kids. He nodded slowly, and for the first time in weeks, I saw regret in his eyes. I'll testify, he said. About everything. The doctor, the vault, my own birth, all of it. And next day, the guardianship hearing began. Madeline entered like she was walking a red carpet, flanked by lawyers, dressed in dove gray, pearl necklace. The picture of calm, but her eyes, those venom-green eyes, were watching everything. My attorney made the first move, presented the DNA results, the forged documents, Zion's birth records, hospital payments, the file from Dr. Crane. Then came Harper, who testified about Madeline's threats, her control over staff, her manipulation of the foundation. Then came Zane. He walked to the stand, calm, steady, and he shuddered the Carter name from the inside out. My birth was hidden. My mother was silenced. The foundation funded political favors in exchange for secrecy. I watched it. I lived it. And Lena saved me from it. The courtroom was dead silent. Finally, I stood. I didn't read from notes. I just spoke. To this day, I can't remember the moment Zion was born. I was drugged, weak. I trusted people to protect me, and they used that moment to erase part of my soul. But I am no longer that woman. I look directly at Madeline. I am not unstable. I am not vengeful. I am a mother who found the pieces of her family, scattered across lies, and dragged them back together. And I will not let anyone take them from me again. The judge stared at us, then at Madeline. She barely blinked. This court denies the petition for emergency guardianship. Custody remains with the biological mother. Furthermore, a criminal investigation into foundation finances and falsified medical records will be referred to the district attorney's office. Bang. Gavel down. We won. But it wasn't over. Power is a strange thing. It doesn't change people. It reveals them. If you had asked me a year ago what love looked like, I would have said Ethan Carter. He was everything to me. Sharp-suited, smooth-talking, full of promises. We were married 10 years. We built a life in Chicago. Raised our son, Jackson. Attended black-tie galas. Played perfect. And I played my part well. Smiling wife, graceful hostess, silent partner. But the silence was killing me. His family, the Carters, owned half of downtown, skyscrapers, foundations, and enough old money to buy reputations. And today, his mother, Madeline Carter, the real Iron Queen, was stepping down. Ethan was taking over. He walked into the kitchen that morning like a man who already owned the world. My love, he said, brushing his lips against my cheek. It's official. Mom's announcing me as chairman at noon. I looked up from Jackson's cereal bowl. That's huge. Outside the courthouse, cameras surrounded us. Jackson held my hand. Zion clutched a tiny toy car. I smiled for the first time in months. But then I saw her, Madeline, standing on the steps, alone, and she was smiling. That night, Harper called. They're unsealing Jonathan's autopsy. How? I asked. Turns out, he did request one, a private one. It was buried under a different name. I blinked. What name? She hesitated. Yours. I stared at the phone. What? It was addressed to Lena Carter, sealed until you became a legal guardian of any Carter heir. And? Harper sent the file. I opened it. My heart stopped. Toxicology confirmed lethal levels of beta-adrenergic stimulants administered over time. Cause of death, cardiac arrest due to poisoning. Case status, uninvestigated homicide. Signed by Dr. Elias Crane. Witnessed by Madeline Carter. Dated 2 days before Jonathan's death. She knew. She knew it would kill him. She signed off on it. Madeline didn't just bury a husband. She signed his death certificate in advance. And now, the world would know. Some women are afraid of breaking. But I wasn't. I was afraid of breaking and no one hearing it. Now, the world was listening. The morning after the autopsy was unsealed, I met Harper and Zane in the cafe near the courthouse. Zane looked pale. She signed it, he whispered. She signed a death. Harper nodded. It's time. That same afternoon, I walked into the district attorney's office. I didn't bring a lawyer, just a box. Inside, Jonathan Carter's unsealed autopsy, forged hospital records, transfer slips, financial documents showing hush payments, a copy of the prenatal agreement signed while I was sedated, and most importantly, a notarized witness statement from Dr. Elias Crane. The DA flipped through the folder, silent. Then he looked up. This is a homicide case. Within 48 hours, the state filed charges. Investigation opened in suspicious death of billionaire philanthropist Jonathan Carter. And right beneath that headline, Lena Carter, allegedly targeted for years by mother-in-law, steals back son, fights Carter empire. #Justice for Lena was trending again. But Madeline? Still silent, still playing her next move. We thought she'd run, that she'd leave the country, hide the money, vanish into some offshore villa. But no, she hosted a gala, a legacy dinner at the Carter Foundation ballroom. $50,000 a plate. She walked in draped in diamonds, smiling, smug. Zane and I watched the live stream from Harper's office. She raised a glass and said, "We don't run from adversity. We invest through it, because truth always finds its way back, home." "She's daring us," Zane muttered. "No," I said. "She's daring the system." And the system answered. 2 days later, FBI agents raided the Carter estate. They found files, burn bags, hidden USB drives. One folder was labeled LGC Control. Inside were therapy transcripts, photos from my lowest points, audio clips taken without my knowledge, and detailed records of my medications after giving birth. She'd been planning to ruin me for years. Harper held one of the pages. "Some of this predates Jackson's birth," she whispered. "This was never about Ethan. This was about you." That night, I sat in my kitchen, watching Jackson and Zion build a fort in the living room. They were laughing. And I thought, this is what she wanted to steal. Not just power. Peace. The next morning, Madeline was served a court summons. Charge: conspiracy to commit medical fraud. Investigation into first-degree murder. Risk: life imprisonment. She didn't show up for the first hearing. Her lawyers claimed health complications. But I knew what she was doing. Stalling, delaying, trying to find one last leverage point. And then she found it. Or so she thought. It came through Harper's email, an encrypted message from a source at the foundation. Subject line: Zion's adoption contract, you missed something. I opened the file, and my heart dropped. It was a line buried in the adoption papers, dated 1 month after the twins were born. In the event of Lena Carter's death or permanent incapacitation, Zion Blackwell will become sole ward of Sophia Blackwell Carter and her estate. Harper froze. She made herself Zion's next of kin after you. And the document was legally notarized, forged while I was still sedated in recovery. Harper whispered, "If anything happens to you—" "I know," I said. "She gets him." I stood, went to my room, and locked the door. Sat on the floor, back to the wall, breathing slowly. They planned this for years. The death certificate, the adoption, the lies, the fake therapy files, and then a clause to finish the story. This wasn't just revenge. This was a blueprint for erasure. But I had one weapon left. Not in court, not in contracts, in public. That night, I posted a video. Just me, sitting in a hoodie. No makeup, no background music. I told everything. Again. But this time, I looked into the camera and said, if I disappear, it wasn't an accident. If I'm hospitalized, it wasn't a breakdown. If something happens to me, look to Madeline Carter. Millions watched. The internet erupted. Even her supporters started to panic. The Carter name was poison now. Donors pulled funding. Board members resigned. Petitions were filed to have Madeline removed from all foundation assets. She didn't just lose the narrative, she lost the world. Then came the call. Blocked number. I answered. Lena, she said softly, you've made a mess. Clean it up. You know I could have helped you, guided you. No, I said. You wanted to own me. Silence. Then you should have stayed broken. She hung up. 2 hours later, there was a break-in at the safe house. The alarm scared them off, but the police confirmed. Surveillance cameras had been cut. Locks were tampered. No valuables taken. Nothing missing, except a framed photo of me, Jackson, and Zion. Just that. A message. I sat on the couch that night, holding both boys as they slept. The war wasn't over, but it was close, and I was ready for the final blow. Because Madeline Carter was about to stand trial, and this time the Queen would kneel. The courtroom smelled like bleach and fear, the kind that clings to skin, the kind that never quite washes off. Madeline Carter sat at the defense table in a steel gray suit, lips pursed, eyes hollow, chin lifted just enough to fake control. To the public, she was still the grieving widow. To me, she was the woman who orchestrated a man's death, stole my child, tried to bury me alive, and nearly pulled it off. Nearly. The prosecution's case started strong. First came Harper, who outlined the entire fraud trail. Fake therapy reports, bribed officials, medical records altered under Crane's license, Zion's stolen adoption file. Then the financial analyst showed wire transfers from Madeline's shadow accounts. Over $6.2 million in unaccounted hush payments in under 5 years. Then, they called Dr. Elias Crane. He walked in slow, head down, but when he raised his eyes to Madeline, he looked haunted. I was a pawn, he said. I was manipulated. The prosecutor leaned in. Did you knowingly falsify medical records? I did, under threat. By whom? Madeline Carter. You could feel the courtroom freeze. He detailed the calls, the intimidation, the day Jonathan's meds were switched. She told me he had a temper, he whispered. Said it would be better if it happened fast. The room gasped. I watched Madeline. No reaction. Then came Zane. He testified to everything. The black ledger, his hidden birth, the secret safe, the night we broke in. He ended with one line. She's not a matriarch. She's a monarch. And she'd burn her kingdom just to keep the ashes. Then it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand. No notes. No lawyer whispering advice. Just me. And everything I'd survived. I didn't come here for revenge, I said. I came here because for 10 years I lived a lie. I told them how I was drugged after giving birth. How I was told my second twin had died. How I was gaslit into silence. How they let me mourn a son who was very much alive. I told them about Zion, his smile, his laugh, how he still flinches when a woman raises her voice. He thinks it's his fault, I said, voice shaking. He thinks his existence broke something. I turned to Madeline. But it wasn't him. It was you. You broke everything. And you thought I'd stay quiet. When I stepped down, the courtroom didn't clap. They didn't need to. The silence was louder than thunder. The defense tried to fight. Her lawyers argued she was protecting the family, acting in desperation, misled by advisors. But then they made a mistake. They called Ethan. He walked in with his tie crooked. He looked like a ghost of himself. He sat, cleared his throat, and he said, "I failed Lena. I failed my kids, and I let my mother turn me into a puppet." He paused. "But I loved my father, and I know deep down he knew she was going to kill him, and he tried to warn us." He looked at Madeline. "You didn't just murder your husband. You murdered the man I could have become." Madeline finally broke. She stood, screamed at the judge. "I built this family. I saved it. Lena was weak, useless. Zion would have died if he stayed with her. And Jonathan, he chose to die." Guards rushed to her. She thrashed, "You're all sheep. You'd be nothing without me." The judge slammed his gavel. "Remove her." And just like that, the queen fell. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, came back with a verdict, guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit medical fraud, obstruction of justice, child endangerment, manslaughter by willful negligence, intent to harm via manipulation of medical records, financial crimes under federal jurisdiction. Sentencing was set for the following week. That night, I sat with Jackson and Zion by the fireplace. They didn't ask about the trial. They just talked about school, about dinosaurs, about how Zion wanted to try chocolate milk for the first time. Jackson said, "Mom, can we go to the beach soon?" And I said, "Yes, anywhere you want, as long as we go together." But the next morning, there was a letter at my door. Handwritten, no return address. Just one line inside. "The empire may fall, but the ghosts remain." It was signed, MC. They sentenced Madeline Carter to 68 years in federal prison. No bail, no appeal accepted, no leniency for age, status, or philanthropic contributions. The courtroom was quiet when the judge read it out. But I smiled, not because she was gone, but because she could no longer hurt anyone else. She stared at me as they cuffed her, eyes blank, mouth tight, still trying to control the moment. I leaned in, whispered, "You should have stayed a memory." She blinked. Just once. Then she was gone. Just a shadow in the hallway, escorted like the criminal she had always been. After the trial, the Carter Foundation collapsed. Donors fled. Sponsors sued. The board dissolved. Zane took what was left and converted it into a scholarship trust for exploited children. He named it the Zion Initiative. He never asked for forgiveness, and I never gave him one. But I nodded when he announced the launch on television. Some things didn't need words. As for Ethan, he left Chicago. No letters, no final message. He signed over all parental rights. Jackson never asked where he went, and I never brought it up. We healed by moving forward, not by digging into dead roots. Months passed. We moved to Charleston, South Carolina, a house by the coast, a place without shadows. Zion picked his room first. He wanted the one with the lighthouse view. Jackson chose the one with built-in shelves. I took the smallest room. I liked it that way. Quiet, clean, peaceful. One night, after dinner, Zion came to me, held out a folded paper. On it, he'd drawn me with a crown on my head. "You're the queen now," he said, "but a nice one." I laughed through tears. Then I tucked him into bed and whispered, "Not a queen, a lioness." Weeks later, I was unpacking an old box from storage. Inside was a faded letter, the same one that started it all, the one Jonathan wrote before he died. "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Look to my wife." I flipped the page. Something I hadn't noticed before. A second note, scribbled faintly. "Lena, if you're reading this, that means you survived, which means I made the right choice." My hands shook. He knew. He chose me. I walked to the beach that night. The tide rolled in quiet. Soft wind. No noise. No eyes watching. Just me. For the first time in years, I was free. 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Dr. Elias Crane's daughter. Inside, a photo of Zion framed in silver. She wrote, "He kept this on his desk until the day he passed. Said the boy reminded him that even the worst men could help fix one thing before they leave." I sat with that for hours. Then, a week later, I published a memoir. Self-written, no ghostwriter, titled The Child They Stole, A Mother's War. It sold 1.2 million copies in 3 months, banned in some elite private schools, taught in others. Jackson started therapy. Zion joined a local soccer team, and I started teaching creative writing at a community college. A small life, but a real one. Sometimes I still get messages. Women telling me they watched my interview, that my story helped them leave, helped them speak, helped them fight. One wrote, "You didn't just get justice. You gave the rest of us permission to go get ours." That one, I framed. And now? Now I sit on my porch most evenings, tea in hand, journal in lap, kids playing in the background. I don't need revenge anymore, because revenge isn't the point. The point is survival. The point is rewriting the ending they tried to write for you. And every time I hear Zion call me Mom, I know one thing for sure. I won.